Welcome to Lucid Dreaming and the Cube of Space with the Alchemical Cabala. So far, we have covered the 6 faces and center, the 12 edges, and the triple currents that make the central axis of the cube of space. So let's just review those. Here are the 6 faces and the center. These align and correspond to the 7 interior stars. In the east, the chakras. Then we have, making the 12 edges, we have the 12 intelligences of the zodiac. These give the definition for the cube. And then, joining the 6 sides, we have what are called the 3 mother letters in Hebrew. These are the superconsciousness of Aleph or air, the water of Mem, and the fire Sheen. It's interesting, the fire and the water crossing combine and form or unite with the superconsciousness of air. We know in alchemy it's primarily the work of the sun and the moon, or fire and water. So Hebrew has 22 traditional letters, and they line up very nicely with the 22 major kana, the tarot. Now, that said, Hebrew has what are called 5 special letters. And in Hebrew, they're called final letters. These letters always occur at the end of a word in Hebrew. And as we know in Hebrew, every letter is a number. So every word has a number. These final letters always come at the very end of the word, and they have a slightly altered form from their primary form. And they also have a different numerical value when they are what's called the final form or final letter. Now, this is significant if you ever get involved or deeply interested in the study of gematria, which is where they make dictionaries. I think Godwin's has a really good one if you're interested in it, where someone's done a lot of the legwork for the major Hebrew letters that are associated with Kabbalah, where, in short, a numerical value of a Hebrew word, if it is equal in number of the same value to another word, there's a whole study where you start to contemplate words of the same numerical value. And it's quite a mystical study because it basically takes the self-conscious mind and puts it into a particular vibratory field within the mind of the all, which is very much what the tarot keys themselves do. This is just taking it a little deeper into the study of gematria. It's a study of its own, and people who are interested in it, it's really fascinating. If it resonates with you, it's something you might want to explore more deeply in the future. All right, now to the final letters. There are 5. Now, I'm not a scholar, I'm a mystic, but my understanding is this is just simply how the language and the letters have evolved over time to develop these, quote, 5 finals. So what you see here on the right are the normal forms, the prime forms of the letters. You see Kaph, Mem, Nun, He, and Sadi. These are the 5 letters, and if you look to the left in red, you will see what's called their final forms. Now, in regards to the cube of space, each one of these final forms of the Hebrew letters hold a special place within the cube. 4 of these letters connect the 8 corners of the cube of space on the interior. They might be referred to as invisible paths. And the final letter Mem, right here, which interesting looks like the letter Samek, or the temperance key, it shares the exact center of the cube of space with the letter Tav, or the world key. Some of you may recall, and we'll bring it up again when we get to the final letter Mem, but the mirror effect of the letter 12, or the number 12 and 21 tarot keys, one placed above the other, is a fascinating study. That said, they both occupy the very center of the cube of space. The center is the core center of your being, and sometimes is referred to as the Holy of Holies. Now, we are going to focus primarily on the foundation of the cube. The foundation of the cube of space is the prima materia. It's the high priestess, which is the moon key, right? It's the key of the moon, the number 2 tarot key. She is the foundation of the cube of space, just as Yesod, the moon, is the foundation of the tree of life. All right, let's look at this another way, inside of the cube of space with the final letters. So here you see, we're going to go one by one here. In the final letter Kaph, right here, it connects the corner of the below southeast corner and ascends from the below or subconscious to the self-conscious above at the corner of the northwest over here. This diagonal. This is the final letter Kaph, which is the letter we will be working with this week. Over here at the bottom, this is the final letter Nun, and it connects the below northeast corner to the above southwest corner up here. The final letter K, seen right here, connects the below southwest to the above northeast. And final Sadi, right here, connects the below northeast to the above southwest. So again, these 4 finals here connect the 8 corners on the interior of the cube of space. Now, what's important here is that each of the final letters are all interior currents and paths of the cube. They all lead to the center of the cube. And they all intersect at the center of the cube and the Holy of Holies, while simultaneously they connect opposite and complementary corners, which if you were to take each corner and look at it, it's a combination of three sides of the cube, three different intelligences, and these form tetrahedrons. So to restate this, don't let the complexity throw you. None of that is really very important. What's important is the immersion. So the importance of these letters of the finals in the cube of space is that they lead to the center of the cube. That's it. The center of the cube has the letter Tav, which is the world key, 21, and the final letter Mem, or the 12th key. We see it here at the top or the apex of the pyramid. Now, Tav and Mem in Hebrew form what the Hebrew letter Tum or Tam. And this means completeness, wholeness, unblemished, and perfection. This word and center is referring to that which is whole, complete, and perfect within you already. Here's another view of the foundation of the cube in its pyramidal form. Again, the center is the apex of the pyramid. Again, corresponds to the innermost part of your being. Now, if you look at this one foundation and the four diagonals, right, that intersect at the eight corners and the center, what we get is an interesting pattern. We get 6 identical pyramids from the cube of space. Each of these pyramids has a unique combination of letters and keys, which is very much worth your consideration and contemplation. But our focus here again is the foundation to arrive at the center of the cube of space. So if we're looking in the interior in the cube of space and the intelligences that form the foundation coming to the apex, and we use the major arcana keys, we see this. This is another way of looking at the intelligences of the 5 finals on the foundation. Final Kaph is down here, final Noon's here, final Pei here, final Sadi here, and in the very center is key 12 or final Mem. So what we're going to do is just focus on this. This isn't something we figure out, but give it your full attention and see just what occurs to you as you contemplate from the world key of Kaph to the center of the suspended man of Mem. I'd like each of you to just muse on this, and anything that occurs to you, please unmute yourselves one at a time and just share what you see. Okay, I'll go first. So one thing that occurs to me is since we're starting with the letter Kaph, and this is our key for the week, right up here in this right corner, these four diagonals here on the wheel, just find that curious because they form the X that's in the center of the cube. And we know on the cube that torus is this upward channel and it's turning inwards here. Whereas this path, the final Kaph, goes inward from the corner to the center. It's just one observation.
I see a combination of movement and stillness, like the suspended man is still and the star is still, but there's motion of falling in the tower, and the transition is moving a little bit. He's harvesting, and then the
Yes.
the the wheel is moving, but then there are other still parts about it.
Very nice. Yes. Yes, that's excellent, excellent input. Sometimes the self is called the moveless mover. It's one of the names for it.
Just to clarify, final cough is that the southeast corner?
It is the
Okay.
southeast corner, yes. So if you're looking at this, up above is east, down below is would be west or towards you. We're looking down into the cube, right? From above, from the self-consciousness here.
It's interesting that the suspended man would be inverted from the west face.
Hmm,
Looking at it from this angle, I
okay.
don't know if that's maybe a matter of interpretation on the way you oriented the keys,
Right,
or that's
right.
just what came up when I
No,
saw it.
that's perfectly fine.
Can you explain the difference between the normal and um the normal and what's the other term
The final
for the
forms,
letters?
the
Yeah,
final
the final
letters.
form. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So again, there are only five in Hebrew, and this is showing their forms. So two things. One, in traditional Kabbalah, not the Western tradition, the Kabbalists only use the letters of the tree. They don't get into the tarot keys. They don't get into all of the the Western tradition. We're an amalgamation of so many of the mysteries and the mythologies. So they focus only on the letters themselves. So the form itself is very important in the meditation. So this letter Kaph, when you see it to the left over here, looks this way. One thing that you see in common of all the letters is, with the exception of Mem, which occupies the center, is it closes itself in the loop. The rest of them are extended down. Whereas final Kaph looks very much almost like the letter Daleth of the Empress, which means door, right? And
Yeah.
the final Noon looks very much like the letter Vav of the teacher key, but they're not exactly that way. They're different. They still hold the same meaning, whereas like Kaph means extended hand. The final Kaph still means palm and extended hand. But what's happening here is these finals hold different numerical values. So The last letter in traditional Hebrew before the finals is the letter Tav, right? Which has the numerical value of 400. Not to get too technical, but these extend that, like 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. They are considered extensions. But the real difference is received by the meditation on the forms themselves. And in the Western tradition, the forms, we know what they are connecting, and with our intention, we align our meditation with the intention of the form of the letter, with the intention to bring us back to center. That's the Western tradition one explanation. Does that at all speak to your question?
Not at all.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't
you're
like it.
welcome to
I
read on the
don't
final
like it.
letters. Do what?
It
I
depends.
don't like it.
You don't like it? Yes, I know. We want it to be
It's
nice
how
and neat.
it's how the letters are written. They
Mhm.
it's like when you learn Arabic, they at the beginning of the word or in the middle of the word or at the end of the word, sometimes they have different shapes.
Yes.
Yeah. It just to me it looks like an upgrade in the font style.
Yeah, but it's not because there are
Well,
Okay.
specifically there's specific now not I shouldn't say that rashly. There is some truth to that. But again, we're not looking at this. I'm not looking at this because I'm not a scholar, number one, of Hebrew. So I look at these keys and work with these letters from the mystical approach and perspective. From my understanding of what I've read of the scholarly work, is this is simply how Hebrew has evolved. Why there was only 5 letters that ended up being end letters, I'm sure you could get different answers from different scholars, but there are only 5 currently.
Five that have been
And
changed like that?
do what?
Are you saying that there are only five that have been changed like
That
that?
is correct. There are only 5 that have been changed over the span of the evolution of Hebrew. Now, we know Hebrew evolved, from Aramaic and Sumerian and Phoenician, all of these very, very old forms and letters. What we're dealing with today is what we call modern Hebrew, even though what you see the font on the right is still more traditional, considering.
I would think one way to think about it is because the way the symbols are written, it's showing a denotation or a terminal point because it's sort of like the symbols are rooted. Like if we were just to think of the letters themselves as energy and the way that they're being written is an energetic pattern, just following that flow of energy, you see that it's a denotation point or there's a terminal point in the way they're written. And since the center is the terminal point, I would say that there's consistency to it. It's kind of like you say, beyond figuring out because we're talking about something that's very much beyond the intellect, but something I thought
Yes.
I saw.
No, what you're saying is exactly in
Mhm.
line with what the scholars say as to why these how these letters are used in the grammar and the reading of Hebrew. I think most people know, but if you don't, traditional Hebrew did not have vowels. It was all word to mouth, right? It was the oral tradition. And then later they came along and they added dots and lines to give you um, a key for pronunciation. So what the scholars will say, I'll just read this off of the internet. It's ancient Hebrew script, final letters often had a different shape to help visually mark the end of a word. This made reading easier, especially in handwritten text. That's one. And then the historical evolution. As writing styles developed, scribes began to use elongated or modified forms at the end of the words for clarity and structure. And then the mystical explanation is Cabala, the five final forms have symbolic importance. They're sometimes seen as gateways or seals. Marking the completion of a word or idea, each final letter can represent a hidden or elevated form of the base letter. And this is how I resonate and approach these letters. Using the core practice, it's my experience that a a different quality is experienced in these paths.
Would you say this is the authoritative path? Like instead of say following the currents, this is these letters because there's five. It reminds
Mm-hmm.
me of quintessence, which
Yep.
reminds me of
And a
authority.
star, right?
So what we're talking about here is that the this is this is the kind of the experiential reality beyond conceptual where we can at any point come to a realization of our own authority. We don't have to follow the current, in other words, something
That's
like
a
that.
that's very interesting, Jesse. I would explore that more. I would I like where you're going with that. So, um, the, what's the saying? You have to know the rules before you can break them,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And the
Oh, yeah.
currents in the tree and the cube are they're not haphazard. These are living intelligences that flow when you understand the patterns. It's that I've let's see. There's one view that intelligence is simply pattern recognition. And the more patterns that a being can recognize, the less at the mercy of the patterns and elements one becomes. If that makes sense. Like you become more aligned. Well, it's just like if you go to a strange city, but you know all the roads, you know the way traffic flows, you're going to be able to navigate much more adeptly and fluidly through that
If you have a
city.
compass, you have a compass,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
There's
Exactly.
a great Pablo Picasso quote where it's you learn the rules like a pro so that you can break them like an artist.
Hmm.
And it really it's always resonated. It's very much in line with what is being shared
Yeah.
here.
Who's is it? Miles Davis, maybe. I think it's a
Hmm.
similar quote. But but yeah, so here's the thing. We don't in Kabbalah in the Western tradition, we don't ask anyone to just you know wrote believe because someone said this, that, or the other, right? We immerse ourselves in the keys and the intelligences to experience it for ourselves, right? That's it. And once we experience it for ourselves, we cannot unknow that experience. Okay, let me move forwards here. See where we are, where I'm at here. So back to this. You got this in your email, this pattern. You can muse on this at your leisure, okay? Sometime this week. All right, let me see where I'm at now. Come back to here. All right. Thank you all. So this week, you're going to utilize two aspects for your core practice. You're going to use the key of Kaph, right? The Wheel of Fortune. This is your meditation. Focus. Have this at your bedside. Okay? Remember, Kaph means grasping hand. And in the book of formation, this intelligence is called the conciliating intelligence. It rewards those who seek to find. Here's what I want you to focus on this week. You have two primary aims. Each night before you go to sleep, your main focus should be the final form of the letter Kaph, which I sent in an email, with the intention of going deeper into the center of the cube of space. Allow yourself to feel your way into this. And make your intention to wake up within your dreams. I also want to point out that the center of the cube is also the center of this wheel. So, every night, meditate on this image and this image right here. This is the final letter Kaph. Now, does everyone remember how we just focus only on this image and let it absorb deeply into the retinal fields? Let's do that for just a few moments here. I want you to stare at the top center of this letter right now. Breathe deeply, exhale deeply, give it your absolute full attention at the very center of the black form of the final letter Kaph. Keep staring intently at it and don't deviate. Just relaxed and very one-pointed. You'll start to notice as you do this correctly that there's almost this white haze filling in where the black form is. And if you move your eyes even slightly, you'll start to see that white haze superimposing over the black kind of move as your eyes shift. Focus, focus, focus. Now, in your heart and mind and will, know that this form this week is going to assist you to come to the center of the cube of space. With that intention, please close your eyes now and relax. Relax your eyes. What do you see in the after image in your retinal field and awareness? If you did this correctly, you should see somewhat of a white final letter Kaph over a blackish background. This is a very potent technique. And it's one of the primary techniques of integrating the inner and the outer using the letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
Do you ever
This,
see a cube to the left? Because I just saw
oh,
a cube.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, that was cool.
This is still the rewarding intelligence. So know that your efforts will be rewarded. Thank you all for your light and participation in this great work. This concludes this part of the final letters, lucid dreaming in the cube of space. The floor is now open for any questions or comments.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So Kaph, we follow that line through the center. The opposite side is the northwest above corner.
Correct.
Northwest.
Yep.
Which, if we follow the current immediately, that's the justice key, which is the 11th key.
Or
we can go across. The reason I said the 11th is because Kaph is the 11th letter in the
that's correct.
Hebrew alphabet. I looked
Yes.
that up because I was trying to find the number correlation,
Yes.
and I just noticed that. So,
That's correct,
what
Jesse.
do you make of that?
All right.
Curious.
Well, I'll be happy to answer that. But before I do, what do you make of that?
It definitely, because all of these corners connect with an above corner of the opposite complementary side, it speaks to authority in my mind because it has to go through the center and then the above face.
Yep.
So there's an
Good.
authoritative aspect there if we come from that below southeast corner,
Yes.
which would be coming through just prior to the teacher keys.
Yes.
Going up, right?
Correct. Yes. So you're definitely on the right track, and this is a really good question. So firstly, every one of these currents on the corners are all ascending from the below. So what you can expect when you work with these is this is triggering, calling forth this deeper intelligence within your own subconscious, within the foundation of your own being mediated through the center of your being and coming up to its complementary tetrahedral corner. So I don't want to what's the word? I don't want to shape very much what people might experience when they go into this. But what I do want to do is strongly, strongly encourage you all to do the practice we just did every night with the intention of coming to the center and being led by the self. But you're right on track to follow the currents, because when you come up to this corner, there's basically two currents available unless you wish to descend again back to the corner. Okay. You can either descend again via the justice key, in which case you'll have to face the deceiver, right? That intelligence. Or you can stay in the above and you can travel along the guardian angel path of temperance. This is why you study and memorize these patterns, because the more you delve deeply into this system in this way, you start to see these patterns follow these sequences. So when you run into the experience of justice, you're aware, you know where you are. on the map of consciousness. This is all priming you to be more adept in the inner worlds. I mean, there's a saying that all of us already know all of this stuff anyway, which is nice, except we don't have our self-conscious on board with it. And that's what this does for us. One thing it does for us is it brings our self-conscious. It's like the Carl Jung is making the unconscious conscious or the subconscious conscious, and being closer, allowing us to wed more deeply and integrate more deeply our inner and outer, our subconscious and self-conscious with the self being that we are, the superconscious. And you're correct. The closer we get to the center, the closer you are to the real authority, the real self, the one that's doing all of this anyways. But this transcends us just being able to just talk, to intellectualize it, right? We can go to a point, we can intellectualize it, and it's interesting. But it's always in the journey and learning what we're learning. You know, part of the Kabbalah, the whole point is, one of the main points of why we even bother with this is it allows the soul to accumulate much more soul experience within the span of one lifetime that might otherwise take multiple incarnations. That's the teaching.